Today I'm starting my own ABC arc, and since it's the beginning, I'm starting with A, and A, for me, stands for animation. That is animation as in DreamWorks, Sharon Galloway, Mercury Filmworks, Big Jump Productions, Sony Pictures Animation, Thumbelina, Walt Disney, John Christopherluzzi, and countless other studios, artists, productions, animators, background, storyboard artists, a whole industry of people who come to bring you the art of animation. First, we're going to start with a little history lesson. The idea of animation has been around for a really long time. The first signs of it, of actual moving things, were as early as the 19th century. People had little toys that you could see pictures move, like a flip book or something called phenakitoscope. It was a device that you shone a light into it and you spun it, and then it looked like you looked through it and it looked like the pictures were moving and stuff. The way animation works is that the eye can only see up to 30 frames a second, and at that point it starts to blend the pictures together and tricking your eye into seeing something that's moving. So that's why when you pull out a film strip, it's just individual pictures. But because they move it so quickly, it tricks your eye into thinking it's moving. A little fun fact about audio versus visual information in animation. Whenever you're animating to sound, you actually need to animate the sound, or you need to have the sound earlier than the animation by a couple frames, because we hear faster than we see. So if I were to do an animation of somebody doing like a dialogue line, I would have to animate before. The sound would have to start being pronounced before the sound, because of the way that syncs up. The very first filmed animation was something called Humorous Faces of Funny Faces, and that was in 1906, and it was by a man called J. Stuart Black. And you can see that here. It's just supposed to look like chalk drawings coming to life and moving on a chalkboard, but actually it was drawn on paper, and then they used the negatives, so it looked like it was white chalk on a black background. The earliest sign of character animation was in something called Gertie the Dinosaur, and that was in 1914. You can see that here. And it was insane, and it was crazy because it's about this fucking dinosaur. It's these words and the dinosaurs reacting to what the guy is saying, and it was so cool. And oh my god, it was something like 10,000 drawings. And if you watch just the whole thing, it gets pretty dry, and we're really used to seeing the animation we see today, but it's a huge inspiration. The first example of animation that brought sound sync to cartoons was something called Steamboat Willie by Walt Disney. It's just black and white. It's an adorable little short that you can see here. And it was the first of its kind. Walt Disney also brought Flowers and Trees. It's the first example, full Technicolor cartoons. And that's a big deal, because before it was, just all black and white stuff. But after Flowers and Trees, Disney kind of just went with the magical dancing, obscure, whatever, because there weren't really long animations. You didn't go to a theater to see animation for a very long time. Animation was just a quick 7 or 8 minute short before the actual movie that you wanted to see. You'd watch the animation, and then you'd watch a movie. But the first full-length animation or animated film was something called El Apostol. It was in Argentina. It was in 1926. Most people know of the more famous example of feature quality animation, and that was in Snow White. Snow White, although not being the first fully animated feature, was in fact the animated feature that brought animation into its own kind of art form. A lot of people don't realize how much effort goes into animation, but Snow White brought it to North America, and they said, look at what we can make things move, we can make them dance, they can be people, they're not just flowers and trees, or Mickey Mouse dancing on a boat, it's a person, it's a woman. With Snow White, actually, rotoscoped her, and rotoscoping is a technique where you film it and then you trace directly over it, and I read a story once that the day that they premiered Snow White, Shirley Temple was there, and the woman that they used to model after Snow White was really jealous, because more people were paying attention to Shirley Temple than they were to her. And she's like, but I'm Snow White. I am the reason this is here. I am this woman on this screen. And everyone was paying attention to Shirley Temple, and she was really pissed off. Also notable that in 1934 they came up with something called a multiplane camera, where you could create layers of animation and layers of background. So it made everything look a little more 3D. A really good example is the opening scene in Bambi, and Once Upon a Forest, where it looks like the camera's coming around through the forest, and it's beautiful. It's fantastic. You know, like different things are moving at different speeds, and like that kind of thing didn't exist before 1934, and it was a really big deal. It made everything so much cooler. You know, with Disney, the reason Disney is such a huge influence and why they're such a conglomerate is because they are what started animation. They brought in the first character animation. They brought in the first color, the first sound, the first full feature animation. You know, everyone's always talking about like how evil Disney is, but without Disney, we wouldn't be anywhere. You know, we wouldn't have what we have today. I also want to make a huge note here that it wasn't until 1995 with Toy Story that we had our first full feature digitally animated film. Toy Story was the very first of its kind. A lot of people look back at Toy Story now, like I hear a lot of 3D students talking about like how crappy like a lot of the technical stuff in it was and how they cheated a lot of stuff, but it was the first of its kind and it was fucking beautiful. I mean, like we all saw Toy Story 3 and we all cried our goddamn eyes out because Andy gave up Woody. Just as a side note, I would like to share something with the world that for all the people who think that Andy was a little too attached to his toys. This is my stuffed dog. His name is Woof, and that is spelled W-U-F-F. I've had him since I was 3 years old, and I am 21 years old. So screw all you guys who don't understand. But yeah, that's a quick little history on animation. For my ABC arc, I'm going to go through like as many things as I can get that is related to animation. I might branch off into like comic books and TV shows and not just the names of things like Toy Story for T. I might do like Sean Galloway for S. So I'll do stuff like that. You know, like we'll see how it goes. I'll see you guys later. Bye.